Good morning, YouTube. Metalhead Weatherman here. I hope you guys are doing well. In yesterday's video, or last night's video, I should say, I made a promise saying that I would discuss the severe weather threat that we have going on today, including the threat for maybe even a strong tornado in northern Florida. So we're going to discuss that. We're also going to discuss the wintry weather, because I know that's a big story around the southeast. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into things. So first, we're going to start out, of course, with the severe threat. Our slight risk has not changed so far across northern Florida. This area stretches from pretty much, I would say, Panama City through Tallahassee and all the way east towards Jacksonville, but pushes as far south as maybe Lakeside, Florida. And our marginal risk that we also have to keep an eye on for potential severe weather stretches actually as far south as I'd say even Clearwater. And then goes as far north as even some parts of Georgia, right around Camden County, I would say. So that's what we have going on with the outlook. We look at this, it's mainly a tornado and wind-driven severe threat. We could see a mixture of both. I'm leaning a little bit towards wind, but there is decent potential for a couple of tornadoes here for sure. Hail threat is minimal, but I did see on a few soundings that the potential exists for it. So we're going to be covering all three aspects there. So let's go ahead and get right into that. The first thing we want to look at is the low-level jet. Now, there's peak times for this to pop up, for this to pick up here. One thing I've noted is that we start to really develop that low-level jet right around, I would say, about 19 to 20 Z. This will be at its peak, I would say, by, I don't know, I'd say about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, or it's going to start to pick up. It'll be at its peak, I'd say about 6 or 7, let's say. So here it is, here it is at 21Z, just coming offshore, but really starting to deepen, getting up to that 40 to 50 knot territory. And then by the time we get to 17 hours out, which is 23Z, here's a really strong area where that low-level jet is developed. We often refer to this as tornado food or tornado juice, depending on who you end up watching on YouTube, and look at the result when we see that here. Not the most impressive curve on the hordeograph, but there is definitely one present, and you can see that there is pretty sufficient wind speeds at that level, at the low levels too. So we're getting up towards that 50 to 60 knot territory. We have dew points nearing 70. We have temperatures in the 70s. So we have a moderately unstable environment, 908 joules per kilogram cape level, and then a pretty sufficient storm relative felicity of 199 meters squared per second squared. So that being said, there is some potential there. I wouldn't expect necessarily anything strong, but it can't be ruled out. And this also has that classic supercell indicator up as well, and indicating that we have pretty good potential for a supercell to develop. This does look like it tries to be in a semi-discrete mode just based off of the hordeograph here. It does have the potential to be linear as well, so this is going to be a tough forecast. It's going to be kind of open-ended as far as what the final result will be. We'll just have to really more or less nowcast it. But that's what all three of these models in the comparison loop are showing me. And we'll jump this forward probably a couple more hours to about 01Z where I was before. By this point, I'm thinking we're going to start to look a little bit more linear as we see a solid line, a solid jet streak develop all through here. So we have to be watchful as well, though, because these winds will start to increase as the night goes on. So we'll probably transition more so to a linear severe threat. Embedded tornadoes are still possible, but I think for the most part, we'll start to lose the cape by that point. The classic supercell indicator is still there, but it's not going to be anything like it was about a couple hours before. The early part of the threat is going to mainly be the tornado threat, and as we go on, we're going to lean more into a damaging wind threat. Another thing to note is even if you're not in an area of severe weather, you're going to notice quite an increase in the wind speed as this low begins to deepen and starts to spin. Because when we looked at the temperature map yesterday, you could literally see the system as it was coming in having its counterclockwise spin. So that's going to be dragging in a lot of wind energy along with it, as well as it pulling in that cold air from the north and northwest. So as a result, a lot of areas over here throughout the southeast could be dealing with wind advisories. So quick recap on this before we move on. Main area that I would be watching would be somewhere around here, I'm thinking, as far as increased tornado potential is concerned. Now, given how early I'm doing this forecast, this area could shift. So just making that disclaimer now. But if I had to guess based off of what I'm seeing, this is it. This is the spot. So let's go ahead and take a look at the temperatures and dew points as well real quick, just for good measure, more or less. Our surface temperatures here are really impressive by this point. Still a lot of 70s present. Some areas getting close to the mid 70s. And then further north we go, of course, it gets cooler. The severe threat diminishes. But it's the dew points that had me concerned with this at first. This is towards when we're starting to lose some of these really rich dew points. But even so, we're still sitting towards the upper 60s. And I've always said 60 is usually a fair dew point for severe weather potential. When we start getting to 65, that's usually a red flag for maybe a hot zone or flash point. And that definitely looks like that's the case right around here. So we have good surface temperatures, very saturated atmosphere. The only thing you can expect then is fireworks most of the time when you have a low that comes in at the last minute like this that's starting to deepen. So as a result, another thing we have to keep an eye on is the Cape values. Now this is not going to be the time where the Cape values are highest. This is when the Cape is honestly heading offshore at this point. But we can still see up to 1,000 plus joules per kilogram, which is more than sufficient enough for severe weather genesis. If we move this back a couple hours, though, that's when we'll really start to see those high values. We're starting to get into the 1,500 joules per kilogram by 22Z. And if we go back even a little bit further before, then we have some pretty rich Cape available. We're starting to get into the... I thought I saw a point here where we were getting above 1,600 joules. Can't really find it now, but that's how it goes sometimes when you do these forecasts. Watch the second I say I don't find it, then it'll pop up later. That being said, that goes across all three of the models here, and I actually think it was the NAM where I saw it. There, yep, it was the NAM. Okay, that's why. Oh, wow, I actually saw 1,800. But that just goes to show how amped up the atmosphere is over this region, and this is why there is increased attention across Florida throughout the day. Would an enhanced risk be issued is the question now. I'm not sure. I'm kind of leaning more towards, well, actually I'm kind of thinking maybe. We'll have to see how conditions progress throughout the day leading up to the event, because it's almost impossible to tell this early on. Usually enhanced risk are called a little bit more so towards the last minute, partially not to even scare people, but also not to overshoot too much either. So it's tricky. That being said, one last thing that we'll be looking at before we go over to the wintry side of things will be the composite reflectivity. This will be a good idea of the storm mode that we'll be seeing available, and you can kind of see now even. You can see these storms that are offshore have that little kidney bean type look to it. Those are supercells, and these and that's a little ominous right there. It's a line of supercells, and we can see the classic kidney bean eagle claw shapes. Like for example, that one right there. That is always a huge red flag whenever you see one of these, because that usually is a trademark of a nasty supercell with considerable tornado potential, to say the least. So by 20Z, these are offshore. And as we move things forward, we'll move it to about 16Z out, 16 hours out, probably going to be 22Z. We can see these still haven't made it on shore yet, actually. Wow. So we'll move this all the way up to OZ. These are starting to get on shore, and they're still maintaining that shape. So pretty much like I said, across this corridor here is going to be the one I'm watching the most for potential tornadic activity. because I think that's where all the ingredients come together the best. So that's pretty much sums it up for us. We're going to be looking for our tornado threat across this section here. I wish I could figure out a way to put up cities on here in a different graphic with this, so that way I can really get more detailed with who exactly is in line. But my guess right now, Jacksonville being somewhere around here, Orlando's too far to the south, maybe Tampa, but I'm actually gonna try to go back here. Dang it, it's not enough cities on there to really use that either. Still working on this all, but that being said, we know where our area is going to be for today. So if you know anyone I'm going to circle it one more time just to make sure, anywhere across this region, I know this is a bad circle, anywhere across this region, make sure that they're up to date on their weather. Who knows? I may even try and live stream this if it gets upgraded to an enhanced risk. We'll see what happens. But that's what we have going on with the severe side. Let's go ahead and go to the wintry side of things, and I have not changed the marker. Okay, there we go. Oops, I marked it. I didn't erase my marker. So that being said, here we are looking at the temperatures a little further up north. This is where, and we already know where our battle zone is going to be. The one saving grace that I think we have could be the fact that these surface temperatures are going to be a little too warm for things to be sticking around a lot of these regions. Maybe towards the mountains we have a chance of some light accumulation. But again, like I said in yesterday's video, I remember an instance in 2018 where we were maybe expected to get about an inch of snow, and lo and behold, we got a foot. I've never seen anything like that before, and I haven't seen it again. But it just shows that it can happen. A weatherman can be wrong. In fact, we're wrong a lot. So that being said, let's roll this forward and make sure I got the time frame up here. This is early part of Saturday morning. This model's starting to get outdated now. We're going to be waiting for the OOZs to come in soon, or the 12Zs, I should say, excuse me. But that being said, here comes that cold air that's starting to deepen in with this low pressure right here. You can still see it spinning if you look a little further down towards the south. I'm interested to see if that little pocket right there still ends up being snow according to the NAM 3 kilometer, because it's been sold on that for so long. But that being said, we see that cold air really start to deepen, but the moisture is all going to be across this area here. Large belt pretty much across this region right here. Oh, I got cut off by my computer screen. But pretty much anywhere along that little sleeve right there is where we can expect our moisture to be, and this is where our potential will be for wintry precip later on in the morning. So this is looking more so towards, say, 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern, maybe 4 or 5 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m. or maybe even 3 a.m. Central. We'll start to see that cold air really start to deepen by about 7 a.m. But just as quickly as it comes in, kind of fades away. So as quickly as we start to see that wintry moisture, it's going to be out of here, and the temperatures are going to warm up to a point where a lot of it will melt quickly. I think a large portion of us may very well stay as rain too, so I wouldn't get too excited just yet when it comes to this, but it's still going to be a sight to see for those of us who do end up seeing wintry precip. Again, towards the mountains is where we're expecting about maybe 2 to 4 inches possibly at the most. Across here, not expecting much. Don't get your hopes up, but don't let your guard down either. That's the main thing. That's the main point I'm trying to drive home here. One other thing I wanted to talk about, especially after I was doing the weekend forecast yesterday, was the potential for an ice storm or an ice threat across areas like Virginia, for example. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the temperatures towards the low to mid levels. The mid levels of the atmosphere are key components to that, because whenever you get freezing rain, you have to think, okay, well, why are we getting freezing rain? It's below freezing at the surface. there's usually going to be a level towards the low to mid levels of the atmosphere that's above freezing. So here we are looking at things right now, and we're going to push this all the way up towards Sunday morning, so to speak, right? And this pocket right here ends up being just above freezing as we get that belt of moisture developing. So right along this corridor here is where I'm going to be concerned about the threat of wintry precip right here. So that's going to be persistent through the time frame where we have that moisture in place. And as a result, freezing precipitation is very much frozen precipitation along the variety of maybe ice or sleet, very much possible there. So that being said, move that forward. As that moisture moves out, and temperature will drop briefly, but just as quickly as it drops, we see it warm right back up. By the time we get towards Monday morning, we're pretty much back to normal. Like I said, also keep in mind, I'm going to remind you one more time, these are the mid-level temperatures. These are going to be colder than expected. They're also measured in Celsius. Anything that's in the blue is below freezing. Anything above freezing is going to be in the green, yellow, etc. So just make sure I wanted to cover my ends there. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the radar could look like there. And we'll take one final look at the totals here. So we'll actually go ahead and jump this forward about maybe 19 hours. So here's that belt of moisture coming in. And the NAM still indeed has that pocket right there. Wintry precip as that low starts to deepen. So we're going to end up still seeing a little pocket right there where we could end up seeing some snow towards southern Mississippi. The only model that has shown that is the NAM 3 kilometer. To a point, I kind of find it hilarious. And while it's not far-fetched, it's just kind of amusing to me. I'm sorry. The smaller things in life will bring you the most joy sometimes, you know? So can't take everything too seriously. That being said, moving things forward, this is getting towards 4 or 5 a.m. Interestingly enough, there's a pocket of moisture over here, especially over my part of town. This is over towards Atlanta. We're at a point where we have surface temperatures at about 534, around the 534 line. So this is actually below freezing for a lot of areas here, but we're still seeing that pop up as rain. I do find that a little bit interesting too. And then the same can be said across areas in northern Alabama, parts of Tennessee too. So that's an interesting look there. I think that could very well end up being snow, because when I looked at the mid-level temperatures, that area was actually below freezing. So I can only wonder what's going on here. We see it eventually start to change over, but this isn't going to amount to anything either way from the looks of it right now. But if that moisture does deepen, though, that could be a problem. When we watch this move forward, finally, by this point, the area over here where I'm concerned about a little bit of ice eventually looks like it tries to change over to snow towards the tail end of the event, which could make for an even messier situation on the roads. But beyond that, just thinking about the situation kind of crazy. But beyond that, I don't really expect too much accumulation. But this is going to be a hard hit. This is going to be a fast-moving system, but it could hit pretty hard. So again, don't underestimate this. Even though this is a fast mover and you're not expecting a lot, you could very well end up surprised. But after that, the picture is clear after that. Other than that, there's really nothing going on in other parts of the country today and into tomorrow. We'll have to talk about what's going on next week, of course. I did mention that in the video too, but that's going to be for later today. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, of course, you know what to do. Drop me a like always. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share the video, especially towards anyone that's in northern Florida today, because this could be a mess over there. But that being said, I'm going to prepare for the video tonight or this afternoon. I hope to see you there. Until then, this has been Ty, Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.